Have you ever felt an unexplained pull within you, a silent yearning for something deeper, something sacred, only to be met with confusion or even fear? Maybe you've noticed a sudden withdrawal from physical desires, a rising discomfort in shallow connections, or a strange but powerful stillness settling into your life. You begin to wonder, what's happening to me? Why do I feel like I'm changing from the inside out? If you're the divine masculine, or someone sensing a shift in his energy, you might be witnessing the mysterious process of Kundalini awakening. And with it comes one of the most misunderstood spiritual phases, celibacy. But this isn't suppression, it's transformation. In this video, we're going to unravel the mystery behind the divine masculine's journey through celibacy and Kundalini rising. You'll discover how this inner force, often quiet yet unstoppable, awakens a deeper sense of purpose, clarity, and connection to the higher self. We'll explore why sexual energy is not disappearing, but rather being transmuted into something sacred, something divine. You'll come to see celibacy not as loss, but as liberation, not as denial, but as the soul's preparation for a greater union, with truth, with purpose, and with divine love. By the end of this video, you won't just understand what's happening, you'll feel it in your bones. The shame, confusion, or doubt you may have carried will dissolve as you begin to see the sacred design behind this phase. You'll realize that you are not broken, lost, or alone. You are awakening. You are being chosen to embody a higher truth. This isn't just a spiritual upgrade, it's a soul revolution. And once you begin to walk this path with awareness, there is no going back. Only forward, only deeper, only higher. So stay with us. Let the fire within rise. The journey has already begun. Watch until the end. You might just discover the reason your soul chose this lifetime. Number 1. Kundalini rising, the sacred awakening of the divine masculine. Deep within the soul of every divine masculine lies a potent force, ancient, sacred, and immensely powerful. It remains dormant for much of his life, hidden beneath layers of conditioning, ego, and distraction. But when the time is right, often when he least expects it, this energy stirs. It is not a gentle shift or a fleeting moment of clarity. It is a profound spiritual eruption known as the Kundalini awakening, a sacred fire that rises from within and begins to burn through everything that no longer serves him. This is not merely a spiritual experience, it is a total inner revolution. As this powerful energy ascends through his being, it initiates a deep and irreversible transformation. The Kundalini doesn't just awaken the mind or heart, it awakens the soul itself. It pulls the divine masculine into a space where he can no longer hide from himself. Lifetimes of repressed emotions, karmic wounds, buried fears, and suppressed truths begin to surface. The old identities he clung to, those built on societal expectations, achievements, titles, and material validation, begin to dissolve. What remains is raw, unfiltered, and real. The battle between the ego and the higher self becomes unavoidable. Every illusion is shattered. Every mask begins to fall. This stage of the journey can feel overwhelming, even terrifying. It's not a path for the faint of heart. But for the divine masculine, it is a sacred initiation, a calling back to his true self. Through pain and shedding, he discovers his strength. Through surrender, he begins to hear the whisper of his soul's mission. The outward focus that once consumed him, the need to prove himself, to conquer, to control, begins to shift inward. He starts asking deeper questions. Who am I beyond my titles? What is my soul here to do? What legacy am I truly meant to leave? As the Kundalini continues to rise, so does his awareness. His consciousness expands beyond the physical realm. He begins to see through the lens of spirit rather than ego, guided not by fear or ambition, but by love, purpose, and divine wisdom. He becomes attuned to synchronicities, divine timing, and inner knowing. Each step forward feels guided by something greater than himself. He's no longer chasing success, he is embodying truth. In this sacred awakening, the divine masculine steps into his divine power, not the power to dominate, but the power to heal, to protect, to serve, and to love. He becomes a living bridge between the physical and the spiritual, grounded yet awakened, strong yet vulnerable. And in doing so, he not only transforms himself, but begins to uplift everything and everyone around him. This is the gift of Kundalini. This is the sacred path of the divine masculine's rebirth. Before we move into the next stage of this sacred journey, take a moment to pause and reflect on what you've just heard. Can you feel the stirrings of this awakening within yourself or in someone you love? Have you witnessed the divine masculine in your life begin to shift from outer ambition to inner truth? This journey is not meant to be walked alone. Your voice, your insights, and your experiences are a vital part of the collective awakening. So share your thoughts in the comments, whether it's a personal reflection, a question, or simply typing, "I honor the sacred rise within," to affirm your presence on this path. Let your words become part of the healing energy we're creating together. Number 2, celibacy as a sacred spiritual path, the divine masculine's journey within. Celibacy, when viewed through the lens of spiritual transformation, becomes something far more profound than the mere abstention from physical intimacy. It is not a denial, nor a deprivation. Instead, it becomes an intentional act of devotion, a conscious choice to withdraw from external distractions and redirect one's energy inward. For the divine masculine, this path is not imposed. It is not about shame, repression, or rejection of desire. Rather, celibacy is a sacred invitation, a divine calling to step away from the noise of the world and enter a space of inner quiet, healing, and reconnection with the divine essence within. During a Kundalini awakening, this call to celibacy often arises naturally. The surge of spiritual energy traveling through the body initiates a powerful reorientation of desires. The same force that once fueled carnal longing is now channeled into spiritual evolution. It becomes a time of purification, where old energetic imprints are brought to the surface and transmuted. The divine masculine begins to sense that something far greater than physical pleasure is being born within him, something that demands space, stillness, and surrender. This period of celibacy is not a void, it is a womb, a sacred container in which he sheds outdated identities, dissolves karmic attachments, and slowly remembers who he truly is beyond ego and illusion. Celibacy, in this sense, becomes a rite of passage. It is a process of reclaiming sovereignty, not through resistance, but through mastery. The divine masculine learns to harness his sexual energy not for gratification, but for transformation. He no longer sees celibacy as a sacrifice, but as an act of empowerment. In this state, his awareness sharpens, his intuition deepens, and his heart begins to open, not toward fleeting encounters, but toward soul-aligned love. He becomes a vessel prepared to receive higher truths, deeper purpose, and a love that transcends the physical and reaches into the eternal. This journey is not always easy. There are moments of doubt, longing, and temptation. But through these tests, the divine masculine strengthens his connection to the divine source. He learns to listen, to trust, and to rise. What emerges from this sacred silence is a man reborn, whole within himself, grounded in truth, and ready to embody love in its purest form. In choosing celibacy, not as repression, but as devotion, he paves the way toward a union, not just with another soul, but with his own highest self. Number 3, from separation to self-realization, the divine masculine's alchemical rebirth. The journey of the divine masculine is rarely linear. It is marked by sacred disruption, often beginning with a period of deep separation. But this is not just about physical distance or the ending of a relationship. This separation is a spiritual initiation, an essential stage in the alchemical process of inner transformation. It is during this time that life gently, and sometimes forcefully, pulls him away from the noise, the chaos, and the external attachments that once defined his sense of self. What looks like loss on the outside is, in truth, a divine invitation into the depths of his own soul. In this sacred solitude, the divine masculine can no longer escape. With no distractions to numb or delay his inner reckoning, he is brought face to face with the truth of who he is beneath the armor. The silence becomes his mirror. The shadows rise to be acknowledged: old wounds, inherited patterns, emotional walls, and egoic illusions. It is a vulnerable and often painful stage, but one that is crucial to his awakening. As he allows himself to sit with the discomfort, instead of running from it, he begins the alchemical work of transmuting pain into wisdom and loss into liberation. This is where the magic of transformation unfolds, not in moments of external success, but in the quiet hours of self-confrontation. With each layer he sheds, with each belief he questions, the divine masculine begins to feel something stir beneath the surface, a light that was always there, but buried under years of conditioning. He starts to understand that his wholeness does not depend on being seen, chosen, or validated by another. Instead, he finds strength in his connection to the divine, in the stillness of his own being, and in the sacred truth that he is already enough. The period of separation is not a punishment. It is a blessing in disguise, a chrysalis in which the old self dissolves and a higher self is born. It is through this inner purification that the divine masculine reclaims his authenticity, not by becoming someone new, but by finally remembering who he truly is. And in doing so, he builds the foundation for a more elevated kind of love, a love rooted in self-awareness, spiritual alignment, and deep emotional presence. Ultimately, this alchemical transformation leads to a profound self-realization. He emerges not just healed, but empowered, ready to embody a love that is conscious, compassionate, and unshakably true. And in this newfound wholeness, he is no longer seeking completion from others, but offering his presence from a place of inner fullness. The path of separation becomes the very doorway through which he steps into his divine purpose. Imagine a man named Elias, who, after the sudden end of a deep romantic relationship, finds himself plunged into emotional darkness. At first, he tries to numb the pain with distractions, work, entertainment, and casual interactions, but nothing fills the emptiness. Eventually, he chooses solitude. He stops running. In the quiet of his apartment, days stretch into weeks, and the silence becomes a mirror. Old memories surface, childhood wounds, fears of abandonment, the pressure to always appear strong. For the first time, Elias allows himself to cry, not from weakness, but from release. He begins journaling, meditating, sitting with his emotions instead of avoiding them. Slowly, something begins to shift. He notices moments of stillness that bring peace. He hears his own inner voice growing stronger. Over time, he no longer longs for the relationship that ended, not because he's numb, but because he realizes it was never about the other person. It was about returning to himself. Through this sacred separation, Elias emerges softer, wiser, and more connected to the divine within. His power is no longer rooted in how others see him, but in how deeply he sees himself. This is the alchemy of transformation. This is what it means to awaken through separation. Number 4, the divine feminine as the catalyst for awakening. There comes a moment on the divine masculine's path when everything he once knew begins to unravel, not through chaos, but through silence. And that silence often originates from the divine feminine. It's not her words that shake him, nor her physical absence alone, but the profound shift in her energy when she turns inward. She no longer reaches, no longer waits, no longer anchors him with her presence. Instead, she retreats into her own sacred temple, and, in doing so, initiates something extraordinary within him. He may not understand it with logic, but on a soul level, he feels the change like a gravitational pull. Her withdrawal doesn't feel like abandonment. It feels like a mysterious echo calling him home to himself. This energetic void she creates becomes the very space where his awakening begins. Her stillness confronts him with his own restlessness. Her inner peace amplifies his inner chaos. Her detachment doesn't punish, it invites. In her energetic absence, he can no longer distract himself with illusions. He is forced to face his unhealed wounds, his suppressed truth, and the echo of his soul's purpose. What he once avoided now rises before him, demanding presence, honesty, and transformation. This isn't a rejection, it's a sacred rite of passage orchestrated by the divine interplay of masculine and feminine energies. Without ever uttering a word, she becomes the mirror that reflects his highest potential. She becomes the silent flame that lights the fire in his soul. Her energy, though unseen, pierces through every layer of his ego, igniting a deep longing, not just for her, but for something far greater. He begins to yearn for authenticity, for alignment, for union, not just with her, but with the divine essence of who he truly is. Through this sacred polarity, the divine feminine becomes the catalyst for his spiritual rebirth. As he walks through this inner storm, he begins to shed false identities and break free from the old patterns that kept him asleep. Her energy continues to guide him, not by pulling him forward, but by holding her light steady at a distance. It is her unwavering self-devotion that teaches him what it means to rise. And as he heals, he doesn't just prepare to reunite with her, he prepares to meet himself for the first time, stripped of ego, wrapped in purpose, and aligned with the divine. In the grand symphony of awakening, she is the quiet note that changes everything. Number 5. The dark night of the soul, the sacred descent of the divine masculine. No true awakening unfolds without first passing through the shadows. For the divine masculine, the dark night of the soul is not a detour, it is the initiation. It is a profound descent into the deepest chambers of his being, where illusions are stripped away and the raw truth of his soul is laid bare. In this sacred crucible, everything he once clung to, his identity, beliefs, patterns, and masks, begins to unravel. He may feel lost, even forsaken, as though the light has vanished completely from his path. The world no longer makes sense, and the comforts that once sustained him now feel empty. Yet this darkness, as terrifying as it may seem, is not punishment. It is the holy fire of transformation. In this space of unrelenting stillness, he grieves. He mourns the self he thought he was, the image built on ego, achievement, and societal validation. He questions everything he believed to be true. Relationships crumble, inner voices grow louder. Emotional wounds that he buried for years resurface with piercing clarity. There are moments when he feels utterly broken, disconnected from his soul's compass with no clear way forward. But this suffering is sacred. It is not meant to destroy him, but to break him open. Because in this vulnerable unraveling, he begins to find something more real than anything he knew before. The pain becomes the teacher. It pushes him beyond the mind and into the heart, beyond doing and into being. The silence he once feared becomes his sanctuary, a stillness where his soul can finally speak. And what it whispers is this: strength does not lie in control, but in surrender. Real power is not forged through dominance, but through inner alignment and trust in the unknown. He learns that the only way out of the darkness is not around it, but through it. With every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of emptiness, he is being reshaped from the inside out. This journey through darkness is not the end. It is the passageway to light. Though he cannot yet see it, the soul is planting seeds of clarity, purpose, and rebirth in the soil of his despair. He is not falling apart, he is being reassembled. And when the first glimmer of light returns, it does not come with fanfare or applause, but with a quiet knowing, a gentle strength, a deep peace that rises not from the outside world, but from the depths of his being. From this sacred struggle, the divine masculine emerges, not as the man he once was, but as the soul he was always meant to become. Aligned, awake, and ready to walk forward in truth. If you've made it this far, it means you've walked with us through the depths of the divine masculine's journey. And perhaps you've seen parts of your own story reflected along the way. These aren't just words. They are echoes of countless souls awakening, breaking, healing, and rising. Now we invite you to pause and reflect. Have you experienced your own dark night? Have you felt the sacred pull of transformation calling you inward? If so, we would love to hear your story in the comments. Your voice matters, and your journey may inspire someone else who needs it today. Or, if you're not ready to share just yet, simply type, "From darkness I rise," as your affirmation below, to honor your path, your courage, and your light. You are not alone in this awakening. We see you, we feel you, and we walk this sacred path with you. Number 6. Karma, desire, and the purification of attraction. Within the sacred journey of the divine masculine, karma weaves an invisible thread through his transformation, especially in how he experiences desire, intimacy, and attraction. As the powerful force of Kundalini begins to awaken and rise, it doesn't just stir spiritual energy. It brings buried karmic imprints to the surface, many of which are deeply rooted in past relationships and sexual connections. What once felt irresistibly magnetic now begins to feel heavy, misaligned, or even repelling. Former lovers, casual encounters, and emotionally charged bonds from the past begin to carry an energetic weight that no longer resonates with his evolving frequency. This shift is not something he chooses through logic or force. It happens naturally, through energetic realignment. As his vibration ascends, the energy he once matched becomes foreign, even toxic to his being. It's as if his soul begins to reject what no longer serves his highest path. This transformation can manifest in unexpected ways, physically, emotionally, and energetically. He may experience a sudden disinterest in sex, a profound loss of physical desire, or even temporary impotence. But this isn't dysfunction. It's not shameful or broken. It's sacred purification. What's truly happening is that his body, mind, and soul are detoxifying from karmic entanglements. The patterns, attachments, and emotional debris tied to past unions are being unraveled. His soul is making space. In this period, celibacy often arises, not as deprivation, but as a conscious sanctuary. It becomes the sacred container through which he reclaims his energy, severs karmic ties, and begins to redefine what love, intimacy, and connection truly mean. This celibate phase is not about avoidance, it's about refinement. It allows the divine masculine to rise above old patterns of lust and attachment and reconnect with his soul's deeper longing for purity, authenticity, and divine union. In releasing outdated desires, he opens himself to a love that is no longer driven by karma, but guided by soul alignment. This is not the death of attraction. It is the rebirth of sacred desire, now rooted in truth, healing, and divine purpose. Number 7. Emotional and energetic mastery through celibacy. Celibacy is often misunderstood as a mere absence of physical intimacy, but for the divine masculine on a path of spiritual awakening, it becomes a gateway to something far deeper. It is not a disconnection from intimacy, it is an intensification of it. In this sacred space of stillness, where external pleasures are no longer used to numb or distract, the divine masculine begins to feel everything more profoundly. Emotions that were once buried beneath the surface begin to rise. Old wounds, unprocessed grief, subtle fears, and energetic imbalances all come into the light. This is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. With the surge of Kundalini energy, celibacy becomes a crucible for transformation. This energy doesn't allow avoidance, it demands truth. It pulls every unresolved emotion into his awareness and invites him to witness it without distraction. In the absence of sexual gratification, he is called to meet his pain, his longing, and his past patterns face to face. And in doing so, he begins to reclaim his emotional sovereignty. This period of emotional purification is not easy, but it is necessary. It humbles him. It softens the hardened edges of his masculine identity. It invites presence, grounding, and balance. He learns to hold himself through the waves of emotion rather than seeking relief outside himself. The same energy that once fueled lust and external pursuit is now being alchemized, channeled into healing, creativity, and alignment with his higher purpose. Celibacy becomes his training ground for mastery. It teaches him how to transmute desire into devotion, how to listen to his body's wisdom without acting from compulsion, and how to stay rooted in inner truth when the outer world tempts him to abandon it. Through this journey, the divine masculine no longer chases wholeness in others. He finds it within himself. And from that state of inner wholeness, he becomes capable of a connection that is not based on need or lack, but on sacred reciprocity. Love becomes something that flows from a balanced and awakened heart, not a transaction, but a union. In this purified space, true connection, emotional, energetic, spiritual, can finally emerge, deep, unwavering, and divinely aligned. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a sacred return. The journey of the divine masculine through Kundalini awakening and celibacy is not about restraint or repression. It is about resurrection. What may first appear as loss of desire, of passion, of connection, is actually the shedding of illusion. A silent alchemy unfolds. Layer by layer, he releases the past, the karmic wounds, the false identities inherited from a world that taught him power was control and love was conquest. But here, in the quiet fire of celibacy, he discovers something far more extraordinary. He doesn't abandon his desires, he purifies them. He doesn't lose his power, he reclaims it through surrender. Every moment of solitude becomes a sacred forge where the ego melts and the soul begins to rise. This is not punishment. This is preparation, a divine refinement. Because true union cannot be rushed. It must be earned through remembrance, through healing, through devotion to the highest truth within. And as he walks this path, not in haste, but in reverence, something begins to shift. He becomes a vessel of clarity, of anchored masculinity, of luminous presence. He becomes the mirror of love that can finally meet the divine feminine, not in neediness or fear, but in wholeness. And beyond even this sacred union lies something vaster, a reunion with the divine itself. He remembers who he truly is, and in that remembrance, everything changes. So if this message stirred something deep within you, if it reminded you of your own path, your own rebirth, I invite you to anchor it in the comments by writing, In the silence, I return to my soul. Let this be your affirmation, your offering, your vow to walk the path of sacred transformation. And if you feel called, share this video with someone else on the journey. Like, comment, and stay with us for the next chapter. Because what comes after surrender is not just healing, it is homecoming. Watch the next video below and continue the journey of rising into your divine truth.